Well, that, as I say, it's time to have a look at the sports pages.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
So the GAA are putting down the foot, as Martin Bretney has a story this morning on the back page of the Irish Independent. 10 counties facing rap for breaking training camp rules, Anthony. So the counties that are involved here are going to lose home advantage for one game in next year's Allianz League. So this is from the regulations that you weren't allowed to go on training camp during the club-only month of April. Bretney points out that the high-profile overseas travellers were Dublin and Armagh footballers and Wexford hurlers. Wexford and Dublin players subsequently claimed that their trips were for purposes other than training. Dublin, the specific example was that they went to the Somme, and I think Ciarán Kilkenny said, well, it was a historical trip, it was put everything in
like a school tour.
A school tour, exactly.
Exactly.
What do you make of this?
I think, again, I would look at it, through the old sceptical GAA eyes. I can't see it actually being enforced when it comes to it. They're saying it's going to be played in neutral venues then. So even the logistics probably of that. So Dublin going down to play whomever in a neutral venue where you may already have that county out in a league match. Will it be able to hold Dublin? See all the hassle this year about Newbridge or nowhere. See all the problems with the amount of attendance and stuff like that. So, I could actually see that the end of the stuff kind of going, listen, we won't really enforce it. We might give you some kind of an idea, but at the end of it, we'll just actually fob it.
I've got actually a great idea for the Dublin game. If they lose their home game, they have to play it in a neutral venue. There's a neutral venue called Croke Park in which they can play their league games.
That's a really good
that's
idea.
your solution there, GAA, for the Dublin situation.
Yeah.
The rest of them now, the
rest of them, who cares?
It's a strange one, all right, because it's very easy for them to just say, we didn't do any training. We were just looking at the monument. We were saying how lucky we are to not be 100 years older than we are and stuff like that.
And lads brought their boots and they just went out independently. It wasn't structured, it wasn't actually anything to do with us.
In fact, Jim Gavin is very annoyed that his players went out and trained independent of the historical school tour. The back page of the Irish Independent there as well has a picture of Mark Enright with the Galway plate. A 1,155 to 1 double for him yesterday. Incredible stuff from the jockey. He was in the last chance saloon, as he says there. Gordon Elliott with some very interesting quotes of him as well, saying that he kind of came in around the end of last year and was just happy enough to knock around. No matter what ride came up for him, he was going to take it, and it's paid dividends for him. We'll be getting Johnny Ward's take on that a little bit later on this morning. We'll move on to the Irish Times this morning, and they're leading with what could turn out to be one of the sports stories of the year. Let me just go back one page to get it. It is Ireland determined to exceed expectations again. So this is the hockey. They're up against India tonight at 6 o'clock. There is the picture there. There's the front page of Sports Thursday. So that's Stephen Findlater. He's saying the stakes raise significantly. Shaw's side face India this time for a place in the last four. It's kind of this odd psychological thing now where India are a higher ranked team than Ireland. They wouldn't be one of the top teams, but certainly higher than Ireland. And they've already beaten them once. They with a defensive masterclass after going 1-0 up, and now they've got to go and beat them again, which always kind of leaves a little bit of consternation in any team to say, all right, go out and do that again.
And it is. It's tricky, because you've already gone to the well, you've set up and you've already obviously shown your hand massively to them. And that is the big thing. But I think, they can also obviously get confidence from it. They may actually tinker a little bit, say, we can go after them in certain different ways. But fantastic, achievement thus far. But it'll be, it's unlucky for them that they end up having to go back in. And as I say, they've already shown their hand. They've already kind of said, well, this is how we actually, designed up to beat you. So it is unfortunate for them, but fingers crossed. Yeah,
it's true. It's a good line here actually from the author. The Graham Shaw described it as strange and unusual, but stopped short of saying he was too displeased with the outcome. It could have been a lot worse the way the competition is structured. Perhaps seeing England again might have been a worse draw. They're avoiding the Netherlands on that side of the draw, which is absolutely key, of course, in avoiding Argentina as well, who are previous world champions. Let's have a look at what the head coach Graham Shaw was saying. He was speaking off the ball last night.
They're a very, very good side. They're a very different style to what we'd be used to in Europe. Very direct, very skillful. Take you on a lot in 1v1 situations, and they have as I said, they'll provide a real different style of play that we're normally used to. But now, as you said, we played them before. We played them in the pool, and probably didn't perform to the level we would have liked to have performed in the pool. We defended very, very well, and obviously took our opportunity when we got it. But so we're looking to improve on that performance, and see if we can impose our game a little bit more, and particularly in the attacking end.
And Graham, they had a crossover game that you didn't have, and they beat Italy 3-0, which is interesting to see them. That's the most goals they've scored in this tournament. And I wondered how much of that game, how much of use is that for you to see that game, to see what they did in that game?
I think it's always useful to watch your opposition. I felt that Italy really played within themselves. The game was not really playing at a quick enough tempo that we're hoping to bring now tomorrow. So from that point of view, it was quite difficult. And I think it was just a reminder to the girls that this is not the speed we're going to play at, because it looked like Italy were trying not to lose it as opposed to try and go and win it. And I think there's a real difference in mentality when you approach a game like that. And we most certainly won't be approaching the game like that, because we want to put India on the back foot and ask questions of them in the attacking end. And Italy didn't do that. They played a very slow game, and I think they got punished because of it.
Oh, there, speaking to Cliona and Joe on last night's Off the Ball. You can catch the full piece on youtube.com/Off the Ball or on our podcast network. Like, the other thing, just a final point on that's kind of a little bit underplayed at the moment, is this is obviously, as I said at the top of the show, the potential to be the biggest night in the history of Irish hockey. But like, India haven't been in the business end of a tournament, just reading this morning, since the 1970s. For them, with 1 billion people watching, it is also the biggest night for them in a long time for hockey. So there's pressure going both ways here. So no point like piling it all on our women taking to the pitch tonight. No, also, a strange one that is a double header, and England are on immediately after. So like, how can you get tickets? Like, there is no possibility of getting tickets unless you kind of claim to be an England fan beforehand. So be a lot of English people cheering for either Ireland or India tonight.
Yes, well, I think, you have to look at the, like, I would have always felt, you think back and say, well, hockey, like, I mean, India would have been, being seen as being up there, so like, I mean, obviously, population and all that kind of wise, it's amazing, like, what they've done. Like, I mean, they've kind of come to the fore of everyone's mind. I wouldn't follow hockey, and next thing you're just reading about it and you're saying, actually, okay, these guys or these girls have a chance to actually really do something really spectacular. So fingers crossed they can get that. What's the side of the draw if they get through?
I actually need to check the bracket. You've got me there. I'm only thinking one game at a time.
Okay, I like that. Well, that's focus. That's focus.
It's a process-driven support base. That's what us Irish hockey fans are at the moment. It's great that it's on terrestrial TV, though. It's on at 6 o'clock this evening. The front page of the Irish Examiner sports section is up for grabs. Niall Gilligan on old battles with Galway, and why the Banner now believe. We'll be looking ahead to the hurling on tomorrow morning's OTB AM. I'm sure there'll be more on tonight's show as well. The hurling last weekend, like, just to get your take on that, it was, like, you can't sum it up too much. It's like, people are trying so hard to say, is hurling got too good at this point? Maybe just appreciate when it is too good.
Yeah, like, I mean, it was phenomenal. It really was. I saw, this whole thing of the hurling snobbery and stuff like this. You just have to stand back and just say, like, I mean, the small ball was always, it really was, when it was played well and played in the heat of the summer and dry day, and the ball moved around fast. And it actually, the skill levels have no doubt they have increased, and obviously the fitness levels have increased massively. So even since the 90s and stuff like that. So you now have power, pace, athleticism, skill, and you've ball striking. Like, I mean, fellas can stick the ball over from everywhere. I was seeing someone was saying something about the slitter, that they may actually have to change, or not may have to change, that it could be a consideration, because the ball is just travelling so far now. Like, I mean, you can't actually, if you can think of football, how they've decided to set up defensively. Like, really, the only major tactic in hurling has been that you drop a sweeper back in. That has really been the only kind of ploy. But now teams have got around that from shorter puck outs, getting it out to a half-back, and then going for long range scores.
Corner forward, or
or that one. So either going short or going very long. So, like, I mean, if you're setting up from a defensive point of view, it's just difficult to do in a hurling game. Do you actually, your defence is nearly pushed right up to try and squeeze it, that you have to go long and then battle for it there. So it's a game that is obviously aligning itself to high scoring then, because, as I say, you can put it over from 60, 70 yards, so once you have that ability and once you have that skill, it's just going to keep ratcheting up score-wise. So it might be something that they could potentially look at, to try to say, well, actually, like, I mean, I think there was, I think the wides were just as many amount of scores, so that, I mean, I can't remember the actual statistic, but the amount of chances is just phenomenal. So that's always going to, as I say, lend itself to a very exciting game. And then when you look at it, and then look at a football game, you're like going, you know, one seems to be going on fast forward, and the other is just like, you know, going nearly in rewind, you know, sometimes, you know. So the old football's been getting a little bit of a bad press lately, but
a little bit. You do sense that this weekend could throw up something good, though. Like, the other thing that I hope, and like, as much as I was so thankful to get extra time in both games last weekend, because I just didn't want it to end, I really hope this game on Sunday doesn't go to extra time, because then suddenly it's like click record on Ballybuffet there and come back to it and watch it in real time afterwards and don't check Twitter.
Yeah.
But it's just a very small thing. It would have been great if the GAA had known that this was going to be the date for the hurling replay and it was going to be at 2 o'clock, then fix your football for 4 o'clock, not 3:30 sort of thing. It probably will overlap a little bit with injury time and all that sort of stuff, but it's only a small complaint. So everything else is great in the hurling at the moment. The back page of the Times is this story that they've been following up all week. Johansson signals Irish ambition. So this is Gary Doyle who's been on top of this since yesterday. So Ryan Johansson, the 17-year-old prospect of Bayern Munich, has made it clear he would welcome an approach from the FAI to represent Ireland. So the Times obviously broke the story yesterday, as I said. So Johansson, they said, is going to be called into the Irish under-18 squad. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily tie him down, but it seems that if he does get the call up from the FAI to that under-18 squad, then he's going to stay put. His mother, Christine McCarthy, hails from somewhere in the Midlands. I think it's, what did I say yesterday? Trim, is it? Or no, Burr, I think. Apologies if I got that wrong. But he's got an Irish mother, Christine McCarthy, so hopefully he selects her side of things and decides to play for Ireland. His father, as you can guess, is Scandinavian, he's from Sweden. And Ireland ready for their date with destiny is the other thing on the back of the Times Ireland edition this morning. That is their date with destiny in the hockey tonight against India.
People might take exception to be regarded from the Midlands.
Well, as I said that, I was like, well, it obviously can't be Trim because it's not in the Midlands. And I was like, I would be corrected on that very shortly, either by you or by Tommy inside in the box. But
that's all right. We'll let you away with that. Yeah, not really.
The Racing Post then finally for me this morning, it's JP goes all in. Renowned gambler tilts the odds in his favour with nine challengers I should say, in the Guinness Galway Hurdle. 9 JP horses tonight. It's one hell of a lineup he's got. And also the back of the Racing Post is turfed out. There's Sean Dyche. Don's European dream should end at Burnley Fortress. So they're gone for the Aberdeen perspective there. They're away to Burnley tonight at 7:45. It's kind of strange seeing Burnley in the Europa League, isn't it? It's fantastic.
I think it's amazing. Yeah. I think he, like, I mean, you know, it's. I know. I think it was Kevin Kilban obviously spoke very highly about him, you know, over the last while. I think he's an interesting character. I think what he has done with that team has just been phenomenal. You know, like, I mean, from even from what they did, not last season, the season before, to kind of solidify their position. You know, the amount of, I remember reading a statistic about the amount of yards that they cover, more than any Premier League team. Obviously set down on, well, listen, this is what we have to do. Everyone buys into it. And what they've done this year, like, I mean, it really is, and he's that type of. I think he's a pragmatic coach in the sense of he'll try to keep adding to it and expanding their game. You know, realizes that, hey, you know what, we're not just going to go in there and blitz people and score all around them. So what we'll do is we'll control what we can, do what we need to do, and then hopefully incrementally. Like, I mean, that's I don't know how much coffers they'll get in the bank for that, but that's obviously a big fill up for them. You know, and allow them go and actually probably buy some serious players. But I can't see him being the type of fella who'd just go and spend dough, you know, on a big name just for the sake of it. You know,
that's a good point.
Yeah, you know, he'll spend wisely.
It's going to be an interesting season for them as well. They're obviously it's 1-1, and Burnley have the away goal there, so they look primed to go through there. But it's so tough for people in their first season of Europa League, trying to manage those Thursday night games with whatever the Sunday games, primarily Sunday games, and quite often it comes to a situation where the board just lose complete patience, where it's like, it's not worth being so far down the Premier League table. But with Burnley, the fact that Sean Dyche rejected those approaches from Everton last year, surely it goes the other way, where it's like, I've given you my trust, Burnley board. You got to give it back to me now. It's going to be a tricky season in the Premier League, but if you manage to just break that ceiling a little bit, if you get into the group stages of the Europa League, have a successful group stages in the Europa League, then suddenly people around Europe are turning their head and they're like, that's Burnley, I want to go play football for them. Yeah, and that's how you make the breakthrough.
Yeah, because as you know, like, I mean, you can think of foreigners saying, who? You know, like, I mean, Birmingham maybe, Burnley, you know, so, but I'd say that the thing, I think he had a relatively tight squad last season, you know, and certain players played serious amount of minutes. So that is going to be something, as you say, that's going to start to take its toll, especially with the kind of, they have a pretty, you know, it's a pretty high demand, high press type of game, a lot of running. It's going to be pretty hard on the body. So you can imagine if you're out Thursday, Sunday. So I'd say, I would imagine what he's going to try to do is fill up the squad with a similar type of player who can just give him all of that, but not to necessarily spend on big names. And he'd probably go out and blow all the money on a big name. But, you know, you'd think he's probably looking for attrition, someone who can actually last that kind of time and then just slot in and kind of give them that a little bit more of a squad player, as I say. But fair play to him. Great stuff. Absolutely.
Another team in European action tonight, of course, are Dundalk. They're in their second leg against Larnaca. It is 0-0. Dan McDonnell was on the show last night.
They're a heavily Spanish-influenced club. Their manager, Jorge Ariola, is 36. It's his first job. He was actually involved with the Spain national team sort of sporadically between 2007 and 2011. He just didn't quite make the major tournaments, but he was on the premises. And 6 of their starting 11 last week was Spanish. More the same here. You know, they're signing guys from sort of the Spanish second division or even La Liga, or guys who are maybe coming towards the end of their career who played in the Liga in their pomp. There's like a Macedonian international who scored against Ireland in the Aviva a few years back. They have a Brazilian fella, a Dutch fella. It's, you know, there's a handful of Cypriots, but really they're a Spanish team in terms of their style, in terms of their management, in terms of how they can manage the game and keep the ball. So that gives you a handle on what you're facing here. It's you know, they're obviously a lower grade of Spaniards than you know, the elite performers, but they have a good pedigree, and they know how to manage the game, and that's why when they get ahead, they're very dangerous. And you know, if Dundalk go behind, they'll find a team that's well able to close things out. So no, there's all sorts of competing influences in this side, but it is almost like playing a sort of a low-level Spanish team here, rather than, say, you know, some fiery Cypriot outfit. So it's just something to bear in mind. I mean, it's often, again, you come on these League of Ireland European trips, and you know, we might have an Irish team travelling with, like, you know, all Irish lads with 1 or 2 overseas players. Yet you play these teams where it's a mishmash of nationalities in the dressing room and all types of influences, and they present different challenges in their own way.
There is Dan McDonnell speaking on Off the Ball last night, talking about AEK Larnaca. Dundalk were up against them last night, talking up their chances. That would be one hell of an achievement from Dundalk as well, to get back-to-back, or not back-to-back, 2 group stage appearances in 3 seasons. You're looking at the tabloids this morning, Anthony? Yeah, it's the Jose Mourinho tabloid show. He's everywhere, you know. This is basically on just about him. Obviously, that they need to get a new central defender. Obviously, they're in for a number of them, Maguire being in particular. But the big thing is obviously about Anthony Martial, obviously heading home for the wife, the birth of the second baby. And you know, we've seen it. It's mentioned obviously in the Sun. It's here in the Irish Daily Mail saying, you know, I've no regrets. Martial says it's family first, Jose, and Jose would obviously believe that United is family. So which family is it? That's it, you know. Like, it's pre-season Jose. Like, it does feel that when Jose heard that Anthony Martial was about to go home, Jose was like rubbing his hands. He's brilliant opportunity for me to get those daggers out and stab my player in the back via the press, as he tends to do. No point giving him a call saying, I'm pissed off with you, Anthony. No point, you know, even like setting up a Twitter account under an anonymous pseudonym and tweeting Anthony Martial would have been better than doing this via the press. It just seems so needless. Bringing, like, I don't want to go as far as to say that Jose wanted to bring Martial's family into this, but ultimately that's what he's done. Ultimately, he has made this quite a personal, sensitive topic for Anthony Martial to deal with. And, like, it's a bit different to the Luke Shaw situation now. I think Jose kind of feels that Shaw's kind of come back around now and he's had control. He's controlled that situation in the end. Whereas with Martial, he plays in a position which makes him a highly valuable player. He plays in a position where he's a highly famous player. He's not as injury prone as Luke Shaw is. There is far more of a possibility that Anthony Martial just turns around to Jose and says "F you" and leaves. Like, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Jose will probably turn this around, but there is every chance that it doesn't happen. Do you think so? I do think that there is. He's gone. Like, who knows? Like, there is, as I said, there's every chance that you're right here. I do feel that at this point, with the transfer window closing next week, it's just a little bit late for Martial to now leave. And who knows? Maybe maybe Jose's words are actually having an impact on him. Maybe Anthony Martial, still a young guy, is waking up this morning thinking, God, was I right to go see the birth of my second child?
Well, but I think the you hit the nail on the head with the control thing. Like, that is obviously his main thing. You know, in all of these situations, and even when the stuff where he's talking about the trip to the States, you know, he's saying, you know, people shouldn't even bother to come. Fans shouldn't bother to come watch these games. They're absolutely putrid, you know, to a fan base that obviously the owners are trying to push United and sell kit and everything else. And he's basically, you have the main manager saying, I don't know why people are wasting their money coming to watch this, because it's just dire stuff. You know, it's so, like, I mean, he seems to want to obviously control every situation. So obviously they need a big signing, and it isn't happening for him. And I'd say he's saying, right, I'm going to throw the dummies out of the pram here a little bit, just to kind of give someone a kicking, so people will go, you know, Jose is in bad form, you know, maybe we need to kind of appease him. He just seems to have that cold thing, you know, like, I mean, it seems to be, it's nearly childish, you know, to a certain degree. It's like a toddler having a tantrum. But
it's a club with a problem if the board is trying to appease the manager.
That's very true.
Like, is there any other board who appeases the manager to such an extent? Like, the only other examples I can think of is Jose at previous clubs, and even then it never really happened on that level. Roman Abramovich didn't take any of his shit. Like, he was just like, get out whenever it got to this sort of level. So it's very hard to think in modern football, that is. Obviously, back in the day, the manager was the man, and the board kind of bowed to his every word. But nowadays, the board wields such power at all these super clubs that listening to that from their manager and actually taking it and not getting rid of him and not having a serious discussion is a sign of weakness from Ed Woodward's point of view.
It is, but at the same time, you know, he ultimately he seems to do this wherever he goes. So the ultimate breakdown is either with the team or with the board. Yeah. You know, it's never with himself, you know, so he's never to blame, you know, so he always says, well, so I was either pushed or yeah, exactly, yeah. So there's someone getting it. And maybe United have kind of literally said, well, okay, you know, they understand that they have a personality who is nearly, to a certain degree, he is the person, he's the fulcrum, he's the head part of the team. And to be fair, Mourinho does during the season, he deflects a lot of stuff from the team. He takes an awful lot of crap, I suppose, and nearly, well, brings it on himself, you know, to a large degree. You know, you don't find too much being written. Of course, you get a lot being written about the team, but you don't find as much being written about players on a specific basis unless he highlights the type of player. Sure. Like, I mean, he takes an awful lot of himself on himself, and he's talking about himself, and he's talking about himself in the third person, and all this kind of crack. And it seems to be that he is a kind of a lightning rod. And maybe there's something else going on that the actual, you know, the board are saying, well, listen, we're okay with him being the lightning rod of this. Yeah. It's a different type of scenario than when Ferguson was there. Obviously there was a different type of control, but there could be similarities to a certain degree on it. But he's I can't believe he's that stupid, and he isn't a stupid man, that he just comes out with this kind of stuff to just fly off the handle. There has to be ulterior motives going on all over.
There has to be. Whether or not you can call it method to the madness, I'm not sure if you can give him that much credit, but he certainly thinks he's doing the intelligent thing here. Yeah. Just before we run through the rest of the tabloid, I just want to show you the Irish news this morning. It's going with Monaghan. Farney boss O'Rourke wary of tribesmen's deflection. So that's all the build-up ahead of Salt Hill at the weekend. Some racing there as well. There's the Jigginstown House colours as Gordon Elliott ended a pretty bad summer for him yesterday. As I say, Johnny Ward coming up a little bit later on. You've got the Herald and the likes there.
Yeah, we've got the Herald. Owen Mulligan was on in the Herald just talking, saying no stopping the Dubs. He would fear for Tyrone if he said, listen, Tyrone played well, but problem is if it was in Croke Park, would they have laid a glove on Dublin? So, you know, I don't know. To be honest with you, it is what it is. I think it's a pretty it's a pretty obvious headline. Yeah. You know, there is no stopping them until someone does actually stop them. Jose is in the Mirror again. This is Kovacic actually saying he although he'd like to leave Real Madrid, he doesn't particularly want to go to United, of course, unless they pop up the transfer fee a bit and maybe give him a bit more money. But he's saying, you know, he says he doesn't think he would be suited to the style of football that United play, which is
a damning statement, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, it is. I think that's again someone his obviously his agent has got a hold of that and said, listen, we can try and squeeze a bit more out of these guys. And obviously that's the story down in the Star that you mentioned. Obviously, thank Gord. It says Gordon Elliott obviously saving the career here, it says of Mark Fish Enright, who was having a few battles a couple of years ago with depression.
Yeah.
And Gordon Elliott obviously took him on board, as you said, and kind of brought him through in a slow kind of fashion, I suppose, and just kind of let him find his feet. And what a few days for him.
Like, I don't think horse racing trainers in Ireland get enough credit for that, for the human side. Like, even with Robbie Power, I can remember after he won the national last year, the Irish national, talking about how Jessica Harrington saved his career after coming back from Australia after a pretty tough time, very tough time in fact, and Jessica Harrington gave him that chance, and ultimately Jessica Harrington isn't thinking about turning him into a national winner. That happens kind of subsequently, and I'm sure that was the same with English here, or Enright here, with Gordon Elliott. That Gordon Elliott is thinking about the man. He's a decent guy. He's a good jockey, but ultimately the success is a separate story, and it's fantastic to see that. But I do think you've got to give credit to some of these trainers that they do care deeply about the jockeys and the people in their yard, and kind of helping them as humans as well.
Yeah, no, and I think it's not a sport I'm massively close to, but a good few of my pals are, and they would say that. In the sense of they can always see where the talent is in jockeys, and then some. It's a tough station, Sure. Being a jockey is tough. Not only the actual sport itself and the physical and even the mental kind of strain that's on you, but it can be quite lonely, I'm sure. And there's downtime and there's stress and there's all that stuff, and there's the worry about the next ride and injuries and so there's always an awful lot of pressure being applied on, and it's not massive money. No. Unless you're really hitting the big time and you're getting all the good rides. So it is amazing to see, and it's great to see a guy like him come back and do so well.
Absolutely. It's cricket all the way in the British press.
Yeah, cricket all the way in the Guardian. So it's cricket back to front. So obviously about England, it's a game. Obviously look beautiful over there. So it's I was at a couple of years ago. I went to the Ashes, so it's a great day out.
I'd imagine the Ashes is a fantastic day out.
Yeah.
Which series was it?
Oh, you know what? I can't remember. But maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, it was on in Manchester. That was the end of the day. I could hardly remember the cricket. Literally, you gorge yourself all day.
I'd say you do.
I went with a buddy of mine who lives over in Liverpool, and he brought the packed stuff like pies, and you just literally just drink and eat. You're just basically grazing for the day. That's it. I'm watching sport.
Sounds amazing. It sounds like my every weekend.
yeah, exactly. And you're getting a tan.
Exactly. It's a win-win-win.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Anthony. That's all the back pages this morning.